That's been my challenge, for my entire life is dealing with my even now, because people assume because I'm on red table that I have so much confidence and I'm good, but I'm not. There's a lot of times when I'm sitting at the table with Jada and Willow, and they are so well spoken and they're so comfortable in front of the camera, and I shrink. I lose my voice.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Couched in Color with Dr.Alfiee. I can't even tell you how excited I am for this guest that I have today. I can't believe I have this guest on here. I can't believe she said yes. I feel so bad. I'm completely fangirl, and I might burst into tears, but let me act right. You all know her. You all love her. She is a phenomenon all unto herself. I'm just elated to have her. I will say, she's never heard me say this. I lost my mom about 15 years ago, to be 16 years in September. And, people will come in and they'll say, oh, I'll be your play mom. I'm like, nope, I got one mama. I don't need no more mamas. Right. And then I met this lady and I was like, oh my God, I want her to adopt me. So anyway, she never heard me say that.
Not.
Yes. And so I'm just so happy to have Gammy here with us. Gammy,
thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, Dr. Alfiee. You know how much I love you. Come on now.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. So anybody who, how do I say it? If you've been living under a rock, that's the only way you wouldn't know who Gammy is. Gammy, she's a force, like I said, unto herself. She also happens to be Willow's grandmother and Jada Pinkett Smith's mom. And you know her from Red Table Talk and many other things. And of course, from her own amazing podcast that I've had the honor of being on twice, Positive with Gam. So Gam, if you would just do my viewers and listeners a favor, and I know you've said it 1,000 times, just reintroduce yourself to everybody. And I think just ease into what we talk about here on, I forgot the name of my own podcast, Couched in Color, is mental health and diverse communities. So if you could talk a little bit about, your own entree to these conversations around mental health, I think it would be a great place to start.
Well, you mentioned Red Table, and I think, wow, one way to really that opened me up was like in the first season, like in the first couple of shows of Red Table, we did a whole show about addiction. And I told my story of addiction, and a lot of people would say that, addiction is considered a mental health issue. I certainly feel like my own low self-esteem was what led me down that path. And I just feel like I've been dealing with low self-esteem for ever since I can remember, as a child. And I know that my mother recognized it. I just don't know that we figured out how to deal with it,
Mm-hmm,
you know?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so, that's been my challenge. That's been my challenge, for my entire life is dealing with my even now, because people assume because I'm on red table that I have so much confidence and I'm good, but I'm not. There's a lot of times when I'm sitting at the table with Jada and Willow, and they are so well spoken and they're so comfortable in front of the camera, and I shrink. I lose my voice, and almost kind of go blank. We actually just did, and my husband and I are
Mm-hmm.
on the final season of Black Love. We're so excited to be a part of that. But we did a live event recently, and wow, I was so nervous
Mm-hmm.
that I would be on the stage and they would ask the question. And in my mind, okay, I know how to answer that. But when it was my turn to speak, I almost lost my train of thought. And I didn't know what I was saying,
Mm-hmm,
you know?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And how that feels, the the physical way that it manifests, that nervousness, that anxiety, I get sick on my stomach. I kind of go blank. I overthink things and just ugh, feel nauseous. all of that is real feelings, and I quite frankly, I feel like if you're Black in America, you're dealing with mental health challenges,
All the
right?
time. Yes. Yes. 100%. I think what I love about what you do is you're so honest and you're so open about your own experiences. I think it's really hard for people to talk about having ever had a struggle with addiction or having ever had a struggle with their own self esteem, particularly for those of us who are Black, especially I think for us as Black women, because like you said, we're just beat up in so many different ways. And, I don't care what your background is. I was teasing you because I follow you on social. So I was like, ooh, homegirl in that Dolce, right? And like you're out there and you're looking glamorous and beautiful. And just like you said, and you're sitting at the red table, all three of you ladies, Jada, you and Willow, being so beautiful. And I would say all three of you are very well spoken and very articulate. But even with all of that, people still have anxiety. People still struggle with how they feel about themselves. People still have to deal with, like you said, the butterflies in the stomach before they speak,
Mhm.
or this thing, I think we tease about it a little bit and I think people make light of it, but this whole idea of do I really belong here? That imposter syndrome,
Yes.
that
Ooh,
thing is
yeah.
real. I did an event over the weekend and I got to meet Benjamin Crump, a bunch of like a really famous people. This brother named Shaka Senghor, who had been in solitary confinement, who's written a book and who's an advocate. And I have to tell you, being with those folks, there were moments, just like you said, when I was standing there and I was like, am I supposed to be
Am
here?
I
Like,
supposed to be here?
yeah,
Why am
like,
I
and I
here?
don't yes, yes, like, why how did I get here? Like, did
Yeah.
somebody make a mistake? And so I think this idea of no matter who you are, no matter where you are in your status or in your career, I think there are these moments when it can creep up on you, that anxiety, you can be
Yep.
overridden with anxiety. And so I wonder for you, can you remember back to when those first, I don't know, like the earliest memories you have of I'm worried or I'm nervous or, can you remember it like early times when you felt that anxiety and what it was like for you?
The only thing I can really remember is that I never wanted to do anything by myself. Right? I never my sister that I'm closest to is, like, 2 years my senior, so
Okay.
we shared a room, we did everything together, kind of,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
she was 2
Yeah.
years older, but, like, when you doing all of your Saturday activities, you're going to dance class, you're going to the Y, your friends. I never wanted to do anything without her. If she wasn't going, then I wasn't going. And I that was kind of a struggle for my poor mother. I just, but that I just, it's just a feeling of being afraid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a fearfulness. That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah. And I think what you're describing is it's very well put, and it's what a lot of people struggle with. So I tell people a lot, I have to manage my own anxiety, right? And I think this
Yeah.
idea of anxiety is like, I don't, if you don't experience it, it may be hard to understand. So when I'm talking to little kids, I'll say stuff like, you think of like the worry wart, just worry about everything. Even if nothing is happening, you're worried. Like you walk out, like I know for me, I'll walk out of the house and I'll be like, okay, did I lock the door? Did I turn off the oven? Do you know what I'm saying? Did I do this, that, and the third? Or even down to things like with my children, I have teenagers. Did I say that thing wrong to my child? Like I need to check in and make sure they're okay. Like, was my voice too loud? Like just stuff that just sort of is on a constant loop in your brain. And so for me, what I have to do, it took me a long time to recognize that anxiety was what I was dealing with. And then when we think about, like you described about your self esteem, I don't know. I mean, I know you grew up in an area that was probably a lot of Black folks and pretty diverse. I didn't. Where I grew up, it was very white. And so being a Black child in a very white environment, this is the 70s and 80s, it was hard. And I think that we don't always acknowledge the challenges associated with feeling like you're an outsider. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
feeling like you don't belong in a space. And so
And
I
feeling
wonder,
like you're not good enough. Feeling
yes.
like you're not good enough. And I had a conversation recently with one of my family members, and because I could never really figure out what it was in my household because I always felt loved. I always felt heard. Um, but just couldn't figure out where these feelings of low self-worth come from. Like, why didn't I ever feel like I was good enough? And one of the things that the person said to me was that because, you know, my parents had such high expectations for us. We had to be the best in school. They expected us to go to college. They expected us to marry doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. Like
Yes.
all of these expectations.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, I just never felt like I could live up to it. So why try?
Yes.
You know,
Oh,
I just
yes.
never felt like I could be good enough
Yes.
for her. That just dawned on me recently. All these years that never I never thought that that's what it was because I did well in school, and I graduated magna cum laude from college in full on addiction. So,
Oh,
like, wow. But
yes.
it was that just feeling of not being worthy, not being good enough. Man, if I could conquer that,
Yes.
you know, and that's one of the things that I admire about my grandkids so much that they came into the world and were able to thrive and just have a level of self-confidence that to this day I don't have. Like
Yes.
that is everything. If you can ingrain that in your children, wow. How they move about in the world is going to be totally different.
100%. But I wonder if there's something to this idea because we do talk about parenting and supporting young people, especially young people of color. Is it possible that some of what they got was well, I'm sure it is, a whole lot of positive reinforcement from the
Mhm.
beginning? Because, all I know is what I see from the outside looking in. And what I would always see is, your daughter and son-in-law really sort of giving the kids space to just fully express themselves, right? And I would watch
Absolutely.
interviews and hear them talk about how they parented. And it was sort
Mhm.
of like, you're a fully realized human being. You have a beautiful brain. You are a beautiful human being. So just go out there and be great. And I don't know how many of us get
Grew
that.
up
Do you know what I
like
mean?
that.
Yeah.
No. No,
Yeah,
no, 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 no.
yeah,
It
yeah, it's very different.
it was your parents' way or the highway.
That's it. That's
You
it. Like, and
know?
children should be
You had all
seen
of the
and not
yeah,
heard.
and not heard. And you
Yeah.
had all of these rules to follow and, you know
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot,
Exactly.
it was a lot, and I think some of it, I do have to say, I know with my parents, I feel like they tried really hard to always push my brother and me and always encourage us and say my mom used to always say, "Baby, there's nothing you can't do." Right? So I
Yes.
felt like I always had
Yeah.
somebody, pushing behind me, but I think that, like, to your point, even when kids are successful, like you were a successful, high achieving kid, if you feel like there's a bar, right? You reach this
Mhm.
bar, but then there's another bar. You reach that bar, but then there's another bar. It's like you're never able to just sort of rest in the knowledge that who you are and what you've done is enough. And I think a lot of us struggle with that. And I wonder, for you, it sounds like that might have been some of your experience too. It was just never
Yeah, I think
enough.
yeah, I think you said it really, really well. That it just was or at least I felt like it was never enough. I think that if my parents were to hear me say that right now, they would be
Yeah.
horrified,
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
felt that way. And the
Yeah.
fact that I could not verbalize it. I
That
couldn't find the words for it. Because
that
she would
part.
try to ask me all the time, like, what is it? Like, why don't you want to go?
Yes.
Like I can
Yes.
remember her, trying to send me to overnight camp. And I was gonna go because my sister Karen was gonna be a counselor that
Uh,
year,
yes.
right? And then
Yes.
she decided she wasn't gonna be a counselor. So I was like, well, I can't go. I'm not going.
Right.
I'm not going because there won't
Right.
be anybody there for me.
Yes.
I'll be there all by myself. Even the
Yes.
thought of it now makes me
I get it. I get it.
listen, my mother, let me tell you something. My mother she tried to get me to go away to college, right? She
Okay.
was going to get an apartment. She was going to get an apartment so that I would go away to school. And
Ah,
she was going to stay in an apartment until I got comfortable
mm,
so that I would,
mhm, mhm, mhm,
but
mhm. What a
no.
mom, right? Like, really trying.
Yeah, she really tried. She just couldn't figure it out. And I couldn't help her because I didn't know. I couldn't put my finger on what it was that made me feel that way, that made me feel so freaking insecure.
Yes. Yes. But it's almost like, I think sometimes we have those feelings and we feel like we have to, maybe you're not saying this, but we feel like we have to apologize for that. And what I try to
Yeah,
encourage people to recognize is those feelings are valid. Remember, you and I talked about this before. Those feelings are meaningful. Those feelings are valid. You should honor those feelings. And I think, what we try to do now, what I even see you all do at the Red Table, and even what I hear you do with your podcast, is to validate people's experiences, right? You let them share their story and you validate the
right,
experience. And I think if more of us had the opportunity to have those experiences validated and not judged, not to say that that was your experience being judged, but I certainly know what it feels like to have adults in my life, not necessarily my parents, say, well, what you got to worry about? You ain't paying
right.
no bills, right? You know what I'm saying? You ain't got to bring no money in this house. You ain't got nothing to worry about. All you need to do is stay black, do your schoolwork, when you're a kid,
Right.
and obey my rules. And what
Yep.
else is it to worry about? And I think we know so much better now, as you described from what Willow and Jaden's their experience was growing up. It was like, no, we're going to validate all of your feelings. We're going to validate all of who you are, and it's okay. And I hope that part of what people hear through this conversation, in addition to your vulnerability, is also hearing that part of how we work with that and address that is to just sit with the idea that it's okay to have those experiences. It's okay to have those feelings. There's nothing wrong with it, right? And then, like, really finding the language to label those feelings and make them make sense. And so I wonder for you, you talked about with your mom, she didn't really know what those experiences were. And when you were younger,
Mhm.
it was hard for you to articulate those experiences. But we know,
Right.
like in the last, I don't know, 5 to 7, particularly in the last 2 to 3 years, everybody has language around mental health, right? It's like everywhere. We're all talking about it. And I wonder if you found that those kinds of conversations just kind of out there in the world to be helpful for you making sense of your own experience, both in the past and today.
Absolutely, absolutely. It has helped me kind of identify and recognize what I went through, what I'm feeling now,
Yeah.
and recognizing that I'm not the only one and it's okay. And listening to other people talk about their challenges and their experiences and what they do to help them get through it, has been really helpful for me. And it's so interesting, Dr. Alfie, because as we're talking, I'm thinking about a family member that I have right now that, because when we were growing up, it was all when you're in a Black community, right? And you have everyday struggles. It's like, listen, girl, put on
Uh,
your big girl panties. You ain't
yes.
got all this
Ain't nobody got
softness and
time.
all of
That's
that.
it.
Mm-mm,
That's it.
right? And I'm
Yep.
thinking right now about this family member who is going through a very, very difficult time in her life. And um, my visceral gut response to how she's feeling was just that, girl, put on your big girl panties.
Mm,
And I'm glad that I have not said that.
yes.
That I
Yes.
felt that, but I haven't said that to that person because she needs to go through what she has to go through to get to the other side, and everybody's journey is different, and just relax and sit back and let her be in that, you know, and she'll be stronger when she finally goes through it. But this is where she is right now, and it's okay. And I need to let her be there. So I'm glad that we had this conversation today because it made me think back and think about you're getting ready to make a big mistake. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
you have to be
Diving in.
careful with how you handle people,
Yes.
you know,
I
and
agree.
allow people their journey and their space.
Amen. I have this thing that I always say that's so profound that you say that because, when I used to see patients a lot, I would have this, I don't know, there would come these moments when parents would want to dive in and fix stuff for their kids.
Yeah.
And I remember someone said it to me once, and I never forget, it was a young white brother. He said it to me. He was a psychiatrist. And we were role playing doing a training video, and he said it, and I burst into tears. And I wasn't supposed to in the video, but it was just so natural. I think they kept it. They probably use it somewhere now. And ever since then, I've carried it with me, and I share it with my patients. And what I learned was triggered by what you just said. It's made me think of it, and it is, if a person is spiritual, most of my patients do have a spiritual life, right? There's
Mhm.
one being up there. It's not us.
Right.
And so if we interfere with, like you said, with your family member, if we interfere with that person's journey, what lessons are we preventing them from learning by trying to rush in and fix stuff for them or
Right.
trying
And
to rush
fix
in and tell them,
everything.
that's it. That's it.
Right.
And so I that has been so freeing for me to know I can be a support, like to the side. I can step in and say, is there anything I can do to help you or anything I can do to support you? But to stop there and just, you know what I mean?
Right.
Just ask with love, ask with good intentions, and then close my mouth and wait for a response. And sometimes you don't get a response. And that's okay. Like you just said, okay,
Right.
you don't want to be bothered with me right now. Do you? But like you said, that person has to go through that trial or that tribulation or that difficulty because there's a lesson in there for them. I was watching Jay-Z's interview with Kevin Hart. And that thing that he said about things don't happen to you, they happen for you. I was like, "Ooh, that's
Oh,
just really
wow.
right, right." It's just
Yeah.
I that just like that just took me somewhere else because and ever since then, it's been about 2 weeks. When stuff happens, somebody cuts me off in traffic or I'm late to a meeting like I
Mhm.
was yesterday, I'm
Mhm.
about to have a meltdown, right? Because I have this perfectionistic tendency. I don't want to be late. And I have to say this as a little tangent. When you're Black and a woman and in the workplace, I'm sure you've had this experience.
Mhm.
You don't want to mess up
Right.
because your mess ups, it feels like, are the worst mess ups in the world. Other people can mess up, but I can't mess
But
up. Do
not
you know what I'm
you.
saying? But
Right.
not me. And so, just being able to carry that thought of, okay, I was late to a meeting, things don't happen because of something else that happened. Things don't happen to you. They happen for you. And I'm like, ooh,
That is
that
a
really,
good one. I gotta
isn't it?
remember that. I gotta
Isn't that
write that
great?
down.
Is
Where's
that
my pen?
good? That one is, I just love it. And
Yes.
so I'm just wondering for you, what are the things that you've heard, or what are the things that you've been taught, or what are the things that you've taught yourself that help you in those challenging moments, that help you get from, one side of a difficulty to the other side, that help you when you're feeling, I don't want to go to that thing by myself. I mean, we talked about
Right.
that one other time we
Right.
talked, that, what helps
Right.
you? What
Right.
supports you?
Just being able to talk about it and just be, a lot of times, like when I was on the stage, when I was doing Black Love, we were doing that live event. Eventually, I just said to the audience how nervous I was. That was important. That was important because now people understand what's going on with me.
Yes.
And they can see
Yes.
why I'm responding the way I am. They can see why I'm stumbling over my words. I'm nervous,
Yes.
and a lot of times just being able to say that, and express how I'm feeling in the moment, and also being able to talk with, the family members that are closest to me. It's typically a
Mhm.
family member. It's
Mhm.
typically it's either my husband or my daughter.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, that I'm able to talk to and share and them just hear me and, us talk it through.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like I was recently was supposed to go to this an event. I didn't want
Mhm.
to go by myself. They didn't have a
Mhm.
ticket for my husband. I was like, "Well, I can't go." And he was like, "Listen, you can do this. You can do this." You know how to talk to people. What's the worst thing that can happen if you go to the event and you're sitting at the table? You don't know anybody. You know how to have conversation. And guess what? You sit there, and if you find you don't like it, then you can leave. So just somebody to kind of walk you through and make things make sense. And you can just and I just listened to that, and I was like, "You know what? You're right. I know how to have conversation. I'm sure there'll be somebody there that I know, even if I'm not sitting at the table with them. So
Yeah.
being able to do that. I use affirmations, and I'm still struggling, but I still try to meditate,
Mm, mm,
and that's just a
mhm.
huge struggle for me because I find that I can't be still.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Stillness is uncomfortable for me.
yes.
And I think a lot of that too just has to do with I wasted so many years, Dr. Alfiee. I wasted so many years in that, um, caught up in my addiction that I just feel at this age, I don't have time to waste. So to just be still, I just feel like I gotta be doing something. And my mother was like that too. So some of that I think is just kind of ingrained in me. Like we were always doing something, always. That's the stuff that I do to try to work through some of the anxieties and that I'm feeling is just being able to talk it out with someone, using the affirmations about myself to to affirm my own worthiness
Yes.
and you know still try to work on meditation.
Well, let me blow your mind a little bit because somebody did this for me. Her name is Dr. Deborah Budding. She's a psychologist out in LA, in the LA area. And what she taught me about meditation is that not all meditation has to be just sitting
Still,
and just
yeah,
still. It doesn't.
yes,
That
I
like blew
know,
my mind, right? So you
yeah.
can be engaged.
There's
Like I know you.
walking meditation.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
yep,
it. You could ride a bike. She taught me that. And I was like, oh, wait, you don't have to sit crisscross applesauce and like close your
nope,
eyes and like, you got to do all that. I was like, oh, okay,
yep,
I know. So now, I think for me, having that freedom, it gave me permission. I feel like I needed permission to like not try to get it perfect, to not just, be that's my meditation, like to be able to like so what I do is before I even get out of the bed in the morning, the first thing that I do before I touch the phone, before I speak to anybody, before I do anything is I will literally just lay there. And sometimes I say my prayers, but most of the time it's just counting, like counting my breaths, like breathe in, breathe out, so that I can clear my mind. And so I'm giving myself
okay,
space to focus on something, which is the counting, right? I'm listening to my breath. I'm counting as I breathe in, counting as I breathe out. But it keeps me from doing the anxious thing, which is open your eyes and everything starts spinning. I gotta do this, I gotta do
yeah,
that. What did I forget? You know what I'm saying? Like, what did I say wrong? What did I do wrong? Oh my God, I can't believe Gammy's gonna be on my podcast today. What am I gonna ask her? Like doing that kind of thing, which I will do. And the other thing I learned is that, depending on people's lived experience, like you talked about the years that you feel like you lost due to addiction, that when you're still and quiet, I think a lot of people, I'll speak for myself. Sometimes what we want to avoid is all that stuff creeping in. Do you know what I mean? That we don't want crowding our brain. And it's really hard to push it out when you're practicing being still. And so I think giving ourselves permission to say, Gammy, even if all you can do is 30 seconds, even if all you can do is a minute, that's enough, right? It's like
yeah,
building any muscle. And I know you work out, right? Because I see you, I'm like, oh, girl. But that's the only way to build that muscle. The same way you lift weights and build these muscles is the same way you build that meditation muscle. It's just giving yourself the space and the freedom to do as much as you can, and then you put it down. Do you know what I mean? Like we don't
yeah,
have to. There's no perfect way to do it. So I really appreciate that you have a meditative practice, that you keep trying with it. That you exercise, that you have a support system, you have people you can talk to. And so the final thing I wanted to ask you about is the experience of all the things that you shared about, self-concept and self-worth and having these lived experiences with addiction and that kind of thing, and how fame impacts all of that. Because most of us out here,
Mm.
we have those things, but we can deal with them. Do you know what I mean? Like we can sit in the house and we know have our little friend circle. We're not in front of millions of people every week. And so I wonder for you, what is it like to have that experience, right? To have like you just did the live Black Love show, and there are all these people out there, and they know who you and your husband are, and you all are active on social media, and clearly with your podcast, Positively Gam, and then with Red Table Talk, literally there are millions and millions of people who watch you and who pay attention to who you are and what you do. So what is that like for you, to have the lived experience with anxiety and worry and that kind of thing? And then just be in front of all these millions of people.
Yeah. It's challenging. It's challenging because sometimes you feel like, sometimes I feel like I'm always being observed, right? And so I can't be myself. I feel like I can't always be my authentic self because I'm always, somebody can always see me. And then I'm a representative of our family,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So, and then I feel, and I think that you feel, some people feel this way regardless of fame. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with it, but then you wonder, that people that want to know you and want to be
Mm,
quote unquote friends with you, is
mhm,
it really for you or is
mm.
it for the fame? They wanna be able to say that they know Jada's mom or,
Yes.
Will's mother-in-law or whatever that is. And I'm sure people feel that. You don't have to be famous to have that experience, to always wonder if people are really, sincere in their desire to be in relationship with you. Yeah, it's that. And then just, always somebody always wants something from you.
Girl.
Somebody
Ooh.
always wants something, but, it's at the end of the day, it's all good
Yeah.
because where would I be if people didn't enjoy what I was sharing,
Yes.
Like, it's a
Yes.
privilege.
Yes.
It is a privilege. It is a privilege, and so, I try to look at it that way, and that keeps me humble,
Ah,
It keeps me humble and grateful. So,
I love it.
yeah.
I love it. I especially love, I love everything you said, but I especially love that part about it. Really resonates with me around saying that you don't have to be famous to have that experience of why do people want,
No.
to have that proximity. And I do think it grows exponentially when you do have fame. When people see you, it kind of grows because I would imagine there's so many more people. And I'll tell you one thing that I struggle with is I probably shouldn't even say this, but I'm gonna say it because it's on my spirit. I struggle with this idea of people feeling entitled to
Mhm.
proximity, entitled to be, do you know what I mean? Like, you should call me back, or you should be present for me, or, I support you, so you should give me your time, or do you know what I mean? Like that,
Yeah.
that's a little bit of that's a little bit of a struggle for me. Just I hate to say it, but it is. And so clearly, I'm just being honest. I don't have the status and the fame that you have, but I know that for me in my little corner of the world, that's one of my biggest struggles. It's really just trying to manage not in my anxiety telling me you should respond to all these people. You should be available to, you know what I mean? Like you should be present. You should show up for this thing. You should go do this because somebody asked. And it's just kind of like what helps me is bringing myself back to, I heard this brother Shaka Senghor say this, who this is a brother you probably know had been in solitary confinement
Yeah.
for like
Mhm.
7 years or something like that. And I heard him say that he practices mindfulness. And that's what helps me. It's just to come back to the present and
To
be
the
like,
present
okay,
moment.
just be here, right? Don't think
Yeah.
about all that other stuff. And then I can make clear decisions. So I have to say, I want to thank you so much for doing this. You are such a kind person to indulge me and come on my podcast and just be so open and share. And I'm just so deeply grateful. So I have to tell you that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I hope I made sense.
100%, 100%. And before I let you go, I just want to ask, where can this probably, I probably shouldn't, but I am anyway. Where can people follow you and find you and learn about the projects that you're working on currently?
The current projects are Black Love is the final season every Saturday night at 10 p.m. on OWN. And then I have my podcast, Positively Gam. You can listen every Tuesday. We drop a new episode. Red Table Talk comes back in September. And then you can find me on IG and social media at Gammy Norris.
I love it. Well, Gammy Norris, thank you so much again. You are just an angel and a jewel. And I know you got your own children. I know you already got your own child, but I'm like, she could be like, maybe she could be my godmother. Let me just say that. So,
I
thank
love
you
you,
so
Dr.
much.
Alfiee.
Oh,
Thank
I
you.
just adore you. Thank you so much.